Hello and welcome to Awful Commentary with me, Dominic Archer, and...
I'm second, am I? Me, Steve Mills.
And today we're going to do our first review for...
Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs,
Yes.
the game that deserves a review like no other. I remember when it first came out and when all the hype that was coming out about it. The concept, the actual idea for the game sounded really good, and I was quite excited for it.
As a concept, like a game for hacking where you can control the city, seems like a really great idea, because I can't really think of any other games that solely focus on the hacking, so the potential is there to be great. So
this is a game where you free roam the city. You've got like what you would assume to be the standard hacking stuff, but you also, as you said, you control the whole city.
yeah,
So just the core idea of the game sounds like what could possibly be wrong
yeah,
with this game.
yeah. So we played the game on PC. So we have a PC copy of the game, playing on pretty much the highest standard settings. No mods or anything else added, just standard Watch Dogs on ultra settings. In Watch Dogs we have Aiden Pearce, the main...
Aiden Pearce.
Aiden Pearce.
There is nothing to like about this guy.
No, there literally isn't.
That he doesn't show one trait that I like, that I can relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would say the Arkham games are some of my favourite games, and Batman is more relatable as a protagonist than Aiden Pearce.
Yeah.
And Batman isn't even in a real city. Watch Dogs takes place in Chicago, so that is instantly something we should relate to.
Yeah.
Aiden Pearce has a more clear motivation than Batman's. Oh, my parents were killed, so I have to dress up like a bat. And
Yeah.
Batman fights giant crocodiles, and yet somehow he is easier to empathise with than Aiden Pearce. And he has the worst written dialogue of any protagonist I've ever seen. But in many ways, he's not even a hacker.
He feels like more of a soldier than he does a hacker, which, for a game that's supposedly based around hacking, just kind of makes everything a little bit more confusing. We spent more time wondering how Aiden learned to shoot guns and be the super soldier that he is portrayed to be, than we did thinking about his hacking background, or even his background at all. How does he know? Where is his training? Like, are we going to learn somewhere in the story about that this guy was some ex-military SAS guy? Like, we were waiting for it to happen the whole time to kind of validate why this guy is going on so many personal rampages.
Blood-filled rampages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With such expert weapon proficiency. And it doesn't make any sense. If he's a hacker, make him a hacker. If he's a soldier, make him a soldier.
Even if it's a character that you can't relate to on a personal level, if they're likable in some way,
Yeah.
then it's like there's the other character. There's Geordie, the character in the game. He's sort of a fixer kind of character. I suppose like Aiden has some problems and Geordie sorts them out.
Yeah.
And Geordie doesn't show anything you can really relate to because he's a mercenary style assassin guy.
Yeah.
But at least he says some things that are funny.
Yeah, he's just a quick-witted. I can remember at the start of the game, through the first, I don't know, probably quarter of the game, we were saying, why aren't we playing as Geordie?
Yeah.
Like, can we play as Geordie? Like, we were just sat there thinking, like, Geordie is infinitely more interesting as a character than what Aiden was.
So one of the main bits with the actual combat in the game is that when I was watching the videos before we were playing, the game developers were saying that every situation you come into, you can approach with your own sort of style of gameplay. So if you want to play as a hacking character, you can approach it with a hacking mind frame. If you want to play it as a stealthy character, you can potentially sneak through everything.
Yeah.
And if you just want to go balls out, guns blazing,
Yeah.
there are so many weapons that everything will just be left obliterated.
Yeah.
But as we sort of played the game, we tried to play it as a kind of the stealthy hacker approach, because
Yeah.
as a hacking game, that's kind of how you feel you should be approaching it. But in the end, it was just kind of futile, I felt.
Yeah. I'd want to play this type of game as the hacker. Like, it's a hacking game. I want to hack my way through and feel like I'm sneaking into places, because that's the job as a hacker that you do. You try and do everything undetected so no one knows you've been there. Yet, most of the time, either we found the best way or the easiest way or the most fun way was to either go all guns blazing and just blast your way through, or to kind of stealthily try and shoot your way through.
Yeah.
Either way, generally involving the guns, which kind of feels counterintuitive to the fact that I'm playing a hacking game, really.
We were saying before as well how when it actually comes down to hacking, there's only 3 or 4 different things you can do with hacking in the entire game. You can blow things up.
Yeah.
You can lift things with like a forklift or an elevator.
Protectors.
Yeah.
Still lifting those.
And that's generally about it. Like, if you're in an actual situation where you're dealing with enemies, those are pretty much the only way that you can deal with them. That I can think of. I was going to say, you can detonate their own grenades again, but that's still just blowing things up.
Yeah.
So even when you can interact with new things, it's still just explosions.
There's so many different guns. Like, see, you have, basically on the weapon select wheel, you have your pistols, shotguns, snipers, and assault weapons. And you get maybe 5 or 6, maybe less for the sniper rifles, but 6 variations of each weapon. So you've got like probably around 25 different weapons that you can use in the game.
And then there's the explosives as well. So I'd forgotten that you had the frag grenade,
the IED,
the IED, the proximity IED,
which we never used.
Yeah.
But when you compare like the amount of weapons and the different ways that you can approach it, with obviously you have your shotgun for your close range, snipers for long distance, pistols for close quarters, or if you want to be stealthy with the silenced pistol, and then you've got your machine guns and assault weapons for crowd control, or however you want to put it. But then when it comes to hacking, we're limited to 4 options essentially. You can use the cameras, you can blow things up, like you said, you can lift things up, and distract people.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's the 4 options you have, and each of those 4 options are the same in each location. So it's very limited, it feels, in the way that you get to approach the hacking, which for a hacking game is a bit disappointing, really.
Yeah, and the only time you ever actually felt that you were hacking something was on a mission. You would come up to a door, and to get through that door, you would be required to hack it.
Yes.
Because every other time you're hacking something in the game, it's Aiden Pearce has a program on his mobile phone that allows him to instantly hack into it.
Yeah.
So even as a hacker, I don't even think that he is one. I think that he's stolen someone's hacking app. He's using iHack. And as he drives around Chicago, he's just going boop, boop, boop. Like, it's very rare that you actually hack anything. And when you do, it's a puzzle that is way too easy to solve.
Yeah. It's just, the hacking generally is just a button click, which kind of dumbs down the feeling, as you said, that you are actually hacking. When you're driving around the city, it's great because you can't focus on trying to hack something and steer and do all the controls. So the button presses work great because you can just use the phone and it seems quite logical. And they're really fun and well implemented when you're driving. You can change the traffic lights with the hit of a button. You can bring up bollards to stop your enemies, which I just ended up driving into my own bollards most of the time. Then you can unlock more things that you can then affect in the environment, like the steam pipes under the city and things like that. So driving around, the hacking is implemented really well. And then hacking whilst you're walking about outside of a mission is also kind of pointless. Like, the profiler is nice, and it's really cool to see all of the different character personas that they have created for the different people. Because there's some really obscure things that come up from occupations or different diseases they're suffering from, or different events that are happening in their lives, which is nice to see, and it gives you lots of information. But you can't really do anything with that. You can hack the odd phone as you're walking by and get some money from that.
Withdraw from the ATM.
Or you can hack an ATM. But ultimately, money is useless within the game.
I think that's a problem with Watch Dogs in itself, is it does all seem pointless. It seemed a lot more Orwellian, Big Brothery. I'm like, I don't know. The game almost wants to be a satire on the way we monitor people and the lack of privacy.
Yeah.
But rather than actually strongly saying you should be concerned about this, the way it did in like the initial announced trailer, it's actually kind of saying people like that they are being watched because the people like the vigilante.
Yeah.
They like that this person knows all this stuff and does something about it. And there is that useless morality system within the game where if you do good things, then you move up the scale of good, and then whenever you kill a policeman because the game insists that the police now chase you, then that scale goes down.
As you're saying, like, with the hacking things, and we mentioned earlier that you feel more like a soldier at times. One of the things that I felt worked well was the cover system. It took me a little while to get used to it, but as I got through, it was a good system. It was simple, just one button tap, you crouch behind, and then you would have instructions if you were to look at a different area on the map. You just tap the button and you would run to the next cover. It almost reminded me a little bit of Gears of War in the way that you can use one button and you pop to cover, the same button, pop over cover, and you can just keep hopping from cover to cover. I didn't like the fact that I had to physically aim and look down the reticle to shoot. There were so many times where I could line a shot up with the sight and I wanted to just pull the trigger, but I couldn't. I needed to scope, pop out, and then shoot. There were so many times I just wanted him to no scope and just pop the gun out. But that isn't in the game. You can't no scope. You have to look down the sight of the gun in order to shoot. So that was a little frustrating at times. But again, like, some of the better mechanics that they have managed to implement have been shooting based or combat based instead of hacking elements, which is kind of what the game is all about, really. There's different sections to the perks. You have some for hacking, some for combat, some for driving, and some for crafting. We did no crafting throughout the entire game. But for the hacking section, one of the early perks you can get is to unlock cars with a click of the button, so that you don't have to smash the windows and break in. Why is that not something that we can do straight off at the beginning of the game?
You would have thought it would be a good introduction to Aiden as a character, to hacking as a character.
Yeah.
To have that sort of thing when you go up. It is a bit odd, because I remember we didn't even realise it was something you could unlock to begin with, and we were going up to cars going, well, why is he smashing these windows?
Yeah.
Also, kind of, why is he thieving people's cars? I know you're saying the morality system isn't important within the game.
Yeah.
But Aiden still doesn't seem like at least within the character, the kind of guy who will just be smashing people's car windows. At least if he takes it and steals it, like the insurance guy can pick it up. But if he starts smashing people's windows all over the place, it just doesn't seem...
He's not a petty criminal.
No, he's not a thug.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like. We're saying with the combat and then with generally smashing.
Yeah.
Violence in the game is like an easy resort.
Yeah.
The game resorts to basic violence.
Yeah.
Like smashing windows or combat.
Yeah.
When instead, it doesn't focus on the intelligent hacking
Yeah.
options.
Like, in the beginning of the game, I can hack the street lights, I can hack bollards, I can hack bits of the city, but I can't hack into someone's mid-range car that's 10 years old. It doesn't seem to make sense. Like, why would you put that ability behind the perk system? So there's lots of things, a couple of things that it gets right, but most of the hacking elements in the gameplay just feel a little weak and underdeveloped, really.
So you're saying in the initial launch trailers, how phenomenally good actually the graphics looked.
Yeah.
Especially for an open world game where there is so much to do.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that people were so disappointed about when they came to actually play the game, was that it just didn't look that good.
Yeah.
And I know there were a few things that we had issues with as we played it through.
Yeah. I can remember seeing those original kind of showcase videos at the games conferences, and the graphics did look phenomenal. I can remember seeing like the wet streets and Aiden walking down, his jacket flowing in the wind, the rain hitting the roads and the reflections. It looked like this is next gen. That's what it looked like in the first trailer. It's like, oh my god, this is what, like, Xbox One, PS4, the next generation of games, this is the level that we're going to be at. But as in the case with most games, or a lot of games recently, it just couldn't match that initial teaser trailer to the same quality. Particularly Clara, is it Clara?
Yeah.
Our female hacking assistant that we find throughout the game.
I really hated her chest.
Yeah.
And one of the main things and unavoidable things with Clara as a character is this huge tattoo piece she has, like, right here.
Yeah.
And then the top that, like, just falls short of showing her nipples.
Yeah.
Because video games haven't reached a point yet where we can have an attractive young woman without showing as much of her breasts as possible.
Yeah.
The tattoo, to me, seems like such an important part of her character for the character model.
Yeah.
That they dropped her actual breasts down, and, like, I don't know, an extra inch, half an inch. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me analysing her breasts too much. I really hope it's not. But I look at her and I go, breasts don't start there. They start like further up the chest.
Yeah.
And instead, so it looks like if she was an actual person, then they would be like down here.
Yeah.
And it was the most distracting thing, because on her character model, that is her defining feature. It's not like...
It's straight in front of you. When you
Yeah,
look at it.
it's not the piercing she has in her cheeks.
Yeah.
It's like the massive, I'm showing off my breasts because they're heavily tattooed. Oh, and my breasts have... I don't know where they are. They're lost. They're lost.
Yeah, well, the thing that I had the biggest issue with her model, again, is the chest, is the fact that it just seemed so awfully made in the way that it was modelled, in the fact that it just looked so obviously two-dimensional. It didn't look like someone had actually gone in the 3D software and modelled the torso and modelled her breasts so they actually come out from her body and down. It just seemed like a two-dimensional plane or rectangle, which then they have applied her skin textures and her tattoo textures to, and used kind of photoshops and shadow around her chest to give the illusion that there is depth on the character, which all games do, but it just seems so unnecessary to try and do that on a character as important to the game as Clara. The models for Damien and Aiden, especially in the cutscenes, are great. Like, they are really high detailed and they look really great. And again, there are other models, like his Aiden's sister and Jax, the little kid. Their models look awful. They look 10 years old in a game. And especially when you have the cutscenes that are obviously pre-rendered, that look amazing, and you have such great detail on Aiden, I've forgotten his name again.
Damien.
Damien.
Especially, and odd as it is to mention, his beanie hat.
Yeah,
Damien's hat looked
amazing. Even T-Bone, one of the other additional characters that you meet later in the game, his model in the cutscene looks great. So, kind of the disparity between the cutscene models and then these NPCs or non-main characters in-game that look so bad, it just draws so much more attention to it when you swap from the cutscene to the in-game footage, and you see her awful blocky hair and just the general low level of detail in general on the entire models, which kind of just brings the whole game down. So, the main story. When we got the game, we just wanted to focus on the main story, play through the main story. Then, if we enjoyed it enough, then we would dive into the side missions and things. Because we'd heard a lot about the game through various reviews online and through just talking with our friends, and mixed to negative reviews, potentially.
I think that's fair.
For a lot of people. So, because of this, we just thought we would focus on the main story, play through, and then kind of make our own decisions on how we felt Watch Dogs' story unfolded and what it was like, if it was worth playing, and kind of how we felt about the story. So, what did you think about the story then, Dom?
It sets itself up quite obviously in sort of the 5-act structure.
Yeah.
To the point where the story is so clearly defined, it tells you you are in Act 1, Act 2,
Yeah.
Act 3, Act 4, Act 5. As if just so you know what's going on and when.
Yeah.
So you know towards the end of Act 4, stuff's about to get really exciting. So keep playing because the game's going to get more exciting.
Yeah.
But everything about the game seemed so obvious. The game starts with Aiden Pearce doing something reckless in the baseball stadium. I think it was in a sports stadium.
In a sports stadium, yeah. I think you had baseball stadium, right?
And that's when we first learn about the revenge trip that he's going on. I'm trying to think of films with stories with good revenge plots. And the only thing I keep comparing Watch Dogs to in my head is like the stereotypical what you expect of a Steven Seagal film. So if you take like 1980s Steven Seagal and you made him a hacker who for some reason is a Navy SEAL, because he's always a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
You have this, my niece was killed, and it's all my fault, because he also has Batman's voice.
Yeah.
My sister's been kidnapped, and I'm the only one who can save her. And as is typical with all these films, all these stories of bad revenge plots, it's so thin. It's so depressing.
Yeah.
As
insanely
a game.
depressing.
It's so depressing. There is nothing in the game that keeps you actually wanting to play the game.
Yeah. There's so many of those pre-mission exposition things where Aiden is reminding the player of how awful his life is.
Yeah, it's as you said before, it's an expositionary explanation of like there's a bit where you go to Pawnee outside Chicago. It's like, Pawnee, the place of dead dreams. I took my family fishing here once. Rorschach's journal.
Yeah.
And it's just this horrible thing.
Yeah.
Who is he talking to?
Yeah.
Because he's talking. It's not as if he's talking to himself. He's clearly talking to us.
Yeah. To explain
how he's
story.
feeling.
Yeah.
There should be nothing there.
Yeah.
But because you don't empathise with Aiden Pearce, you don't care that his sister is gone.
Yeah.
You don't care that his niece is dead, even though she died the day before my birthday.
Yeah.
I didn't even care. The nephew, I don't care. The villains, I don't care about fighting them because I don't care about the hero.
the way the story seemed to be structured is it was basically that you get the mission, then you go to this location, you have a shootout, and then you drive back.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the structure that every mission followed. And then it just felt like you were moving from almost one set piece to another.
Uncharted?
Just like each shootout was almost its own singular event, and then they tried to knit these shootouts together through the story,
which was just so pointless.
Yeah.
It's even the antagonists, like the villains, the people that you're fighting, there was just nothing interesting about them. The only interesting villain to me was Damien, was the main guy.
Yeah.
Who used to be your friend and now he's your enemy.
Yes.
Because it's a revenge story. And
there needs to be betrayal.
It needs to be betrayal. But there were so many betrayals in the game.
Yeah.
And none of them were interesting.
No.
And none of them were even surprising.
Yeah. Or had any impact.
Yeah, which almost in itself, to have so many betrayals that they are unsurprising, that they are all unsurprising, is almost surprising in itself. Because it's all the characters you expect it to be.
Yeah.
It's never you go, oh, I can't believe that she would do that. It's always, oh yeah, of course, he's a guy who only cares about money. You know, of course he's going to go for a higher offer.
Yeah.
But then, even going back to the villains, the boss fights, or lack thereof, meant that the actual villains presented no challenge.
Yeah.
And the only time they presented a challenge was when one of their lackeys came to fight you.
Yeah.
And there are only 4 different types of enemy you fight in the game.
Yeah.
So there was the one time we fought the war veteran, uber gangster hacker Iraq.
Yes.
And it took us 5 attempts to kill this guy. It wasn't until the cutscene of him staggering to his death that we were like, oh, that's the guy we just shot in the face.
Yeah.
Which meant that it lacked impact.
Yeah.
And ironically, I know I missed part of the game halfway through, but the most interesting death in the game was the major villain who orchestrated everything. But I only saw him twice. I only saw him for one cutscene in the beginning of the game, and then when we killed him at the end of the game, in the most interesting way.
Well, the thing that I had the biggest issue with, well, partly two, in the way that the final mission actually plays out, which is very sudden and very short in its execution and relies a lot on QuickTime events, which again takes away the impact of this final confrontation, because I'm not playing it, I'm more watching it. So I'm not really in control.
I can't think of any other QuickTime events in the game either.
No.
That's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other QuickTime sequences either. And then after this last battle, you get Aiden all of a sudden with his hero speech of how he is now somehow the light of the city, here to protect the average citizen and do what is right and correct the wrongs of the city. And this is a guy who I've spent the entirety of this game going on a personal murderous rampage. Just killing anyone that I needed to kill with my mystical SAS skills to get what I want, to feed my own personal revenge. And the game just happens to validate this by the fact that if I need information or to kill someone, it happens to be someone that, oh look, he's hiding money offshore somewhere, or he's doing something slightly unauthorized, or so coincidentally bad, this character, so that I guess that's supposed to make me feel okay in the fact that I have to kill him. But then, the morals are just all over the place. Aiden has killed so many people, not helped a single citizen or civilian through the entire game. It's all been for Aiden. And then at the very end, does this righteous speech about how he's going to save everybody. It just doesn't seem to match up. It just seems complete opposite of the character that I've played through the rest of the game.
I'm just drawing a comparison in my mind between Watch Dogs and Infamous.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, I don't actually know, because I didn't care enough about the game after we finished it to look it up, whether the morality system plays into the speech he gives at the end of the game.
True.
The same way that Infamous does. And I don't know if that is. If anyone does know, I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, we can find out.
But in Infamous, the morality at least played some effect on the end of the game.
Yeah.
Whereas there is no way I could see if we replayed the game, which I would not be that interested in doing.
No.
If we were to replay the game, I can't see how anything would change.
Yeah.
Because everything is tied up, as we were saying.
Yeah.
Like, every interesting character, gone.
Yeah.
Every decision isn't even a decision.
Yeah.
So
it's very linear in the way that it goes. Like, every event is meticulously planned, and like I said, everything at the end forms into the nice little box and is all wrapped up and leaves nothing. It leaves them open for the potential Watch Dogs 2 to do whatever they want.
It kind of ends with that Watch Dogs world thing, doesn't it? Of saying the CTOS servers that you hack throughout the game are now leaving Chicago and will go all over America.
Yeah, so it's basically setting up the next Watch Dogs for a new city and a completely new story.
You can hack traffic lights everywhere.
Yeah, now you can hack traffic lights in a different part of the States.
Yeah.
But there's no indication that anywhere, that any of the characters or any of the events of this game can potentially affect a future game. I can't see how that could be possible in any way. It has to, if they do another game, it has to be a completely separate storyline.
So those are our thoughts on Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
It comes from a really great concept to a kind of badly delivered end product.
Yeah.
We both agreed that the visuals and the cutscenes are good, but in the main story, the main game, not so much.
Yeah, just a little average, really. You're kind of so everyday open world game, which is a shame based on what we were teased initially.
We said we wouldn't buy the game if we had to, and we'd be skeptical about the DLC and the sequel. It would take something pretty special for us to consider it. But those are just our opinions.
They are,
and we're usually right. But we like to leave the door open.
Yeah.
So
you can have your opinion even if it's wrong.
Even if it's wrong, even if you're Arthur. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to get in touch. Let us know. Unless it's about Assassin's Creed, in which case I don't care.
Yeah.
And and we will see you on our next awful commentary video.
Thank you very much.